Given Trump's unilateral decision to plunge the US into a trade war with our biggest trading partners, it looks like the people who are going to be most hurt by this move are Trump's own supporters. And that's because even before Trump took office, the Canadians were already formulating a plan to impose maximum pressure on Trump by targeting the retaliatory tariffs on red states. According to the New York Times, the Canadian officials said their choice of goods was meant to be precisely targeted and aimed at political impact. They specifically want to focus on goods made in Republican or swing states where the pain of tariffs, like pressure on jobs and the bottom line of local businesses, would affect Trump allies. Canada's government hopes that those allies, including governors or members of Congress, would then pick up the phone and call Mr. Trump, intervening in favor of de-escalation. Melanie Joy, Canada's foreign minister, met with a slew of Republicans to make her country's case, including Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, Senator Jim Risch of Idaho, and the Senate Majority Leader John Thune of South Dakota. Ms. Jolly said that she hoped her outreach to senior Republicans would persuade them to intervene to avert or limit a trade war and its negative impact on consumers and jobs on both sides of the border. Quote, "My job here is to be able to talk about facts, and that comes before any threat of counter tariffs from our side. Because then the senators might say, well, why are we doing this? Why are we imposing tariffs? It's affecting my own constituency." Now, first off, it's sweet that Canada's foreign minister thinks that these Republican senators are putting their constituents' needs above the needs of Donald Trump. In case anybody is new here, the reason that these Republican senators will not respond to things that impact their own constituency is because they are not in government to represent their constituents. They are there to represent Donald Trump. The legislative branch has contracted every ounce of its autonomy and integrity and dignity to Trump. They will confirm his aggressively unqualified nominees, even if it means their own kids will grow up in a country whose healthcare is overseen by a vaccine skeptic. Even if it means their own kids will grow up in a country where the president uses the FBI as his own tool of retribution. Even if it means their own kids will grow up in a country where our top agencies are led by reality TV stars. There is no limit to what they will sacrifice in deference to Trump. So the notion that these guys are going to be moved by the prospect of their constituents getting hurt, it's cute, but probably not going to move the needle. And in fact, Canada has already begun doing what it promised. British Columbia has announced that it will no longer buy American liquor from red states in response to US tariffs. As a first step in response to the tariffs, British Columbia's premier announced immediate measures, including directing the BC Liquor Distribution Branch to immediately stop buying American liquor from red states and remove top-selling red state brands from the shelves of public liquor stores, and directed the BC government and Crown operations to buy Canadian goods and services first. In other words, they are making it abundantly clear that they understand how political pressure works in the United States, and that they understand that half of the US is as opposed to Trump as they are. If they want to ensure that Trump feels maximum political pressure, this is how to do it. Beyond that, Mexico's Claudia Sheinbaum made it clear that the country that will be most impacted from these tariffs is, in fact, the United States.
Y tenemos plan A, plan B, plan C para lo que decida el gobierno de los Estados Unidos. Ahora es muy importante que sepa el pueblo de México que siempre vamos a defender la dignidad de nuestro pueblo, que siempre vamos a defender el respeto a nuestra soberanía y un diálogo como iguales, como siempre lo hemos mencionado, sin subordinación. Vamos a esperar, como siempre he dicho, con la cabeza fría, tomando las decisiones, estamos preparados y mantenemos este diálogo. El día de hoy está aquí el secretario de Economía, porque es importante recordar las implicaciones que pudiera tener poner aranceles para la economía de los Estados Unidos, principalmente, para el tratado comercial de los tres países, para nuestros pueblos, pero en particular para la economía de los Estados Unidos.
And of course, after this statement, it was confirmed that she ordered retaliatory tariffs against products from the US. And as far as our neighbor to the north is concerned, Canada's Justin Trudeau took to Twitter writing, "The United States has confirmed that it intends to impose 25% tariffs on most Canadian goods, with 10% tariffs on energy. I've met with premiers and our cabinet today, and I'll be speaking with the President Sheinbaum of Mexico shortly." He then had this to say publicly.
Beyond that, it will have real consequences for you, the American people. As I have consistently said, tariffs against Canada will put your jobs at risk, potentially shutting down American auto assembly plants and other manufacturing facilities. They will raise costs for you, including food at the grocery stores and gas at the pump. They will impede your access to an affordable supply of vital goods crucial for U.S. security, such as nickel, potash, uranium, steel, and aluminum. They will violate the free trade agreement that the President and I, along with our Mexican partner, negotiated and signed a few years ago. But it doesn't have to be this way. As President John F. Kennedy said many years ago, geography has made us neighbors, history has made us friends, economics has made us partners, and necessity has made us allies.
And of course, the reality is that our own government would be well served to listen, because at the end of the day, it is Americans who will be impacted, and red states specifically. I repeat this point in every video, and I'll continue to repeat it now. Tariffs are a tax on Americans. When we impose tariffs on a foreign country, it is the importing American company that pays. And they're not going to just absorb those increased costs, so instead they pass those costs on to the consumer. That's us. We are the consumer. That means that a tariff on Mexico or Canada or China is in actuality a tax on Americans. Here's an example of what I mean. According to the New York Times, the executive chairwoman of the Canadian auto parts maker Linamar said that the 25% tariffs President Trump intends to impose tomorrow on exports from Canada and Mexico could shut down North American auto production within a week. Quote, "Nobody can absorb this kind of cost, not the automakers, not the suppliers, not consumers. Demand will collapse and vehicle production will grind to a halt, putting millions of workers out of work, the vast majority of which are in the United States." And of course, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Look at the top US imports from Canada: crude oil, vehicles, machinery, plastics, wood, iron, steel. We also import breads, meats, gold. That means gas prices, energy prices, food prices, car prices, and jewelry prices are all gonna rise. From Mexico, we import vehicles, parts, computers, crude oil, fruits, vegetables. That means gas prices, energy prices, computers, electronics, and food prices are gonna rise. From China, we import phones, laptops, tablets, toys, games, clothing, shoes, furniture, bedding, batteries. That means prices on nearly every good we buy, from gas to energy to construction to clothing to food to jewelry to cars, is going to go up. Not because it's some necessary evil, it's not, but rather because Trump wants to try and prove his dominance. And because he's threatened it, now he won't back down, because he doesn't want to be viewed as capitulating. This is what you get when you elect a guy whose entire life is him compensating for a fragile ego. In fact, take a look at this. The White House lowered the tariffs on energy to minimize the rise in costs from 25% to 10%. That's on Canadian energy. That is a tacit admission that they understand tariffs raise prices. Otherwise, why lower the tariff? And if you are going to lower the tariff to minimize the rise in costs for Americans, then why impose them at all if you understand that tariffs mean higher costs for us? They don't even get to claim ignorance here, because they're proving that they understand this will cause harm, and yet they're opting to barrel ahead anyway. So look, while it's clear that Republican elected officials will never put their own constituents above dear leader Donald Trump, perhaps Trump's own voters will recognize reality when his trade war disproportionately impacts them. Trump may feel immune to political pressure from the left, but when his own voters are dealt the most intense blow, something tells me it won't be as easy for him to ignore them.